I sat on the edge of the sofa in my parents' Phoenix living room, the fake pine scent from a candle clashing with the burnt ham smell wafting from the kitchen, watching as my sister Lila twirled a shiny new condo key like she had just won the lottery. Mom clasped her hands like she was watching a miracle. Dad puffed his chest with pride, and outside in the driveway sat a white SUV with a giant red bow gleaming under the Arizona sun. "A starter place and a safe ride," Dad announced, his voice thick with pride. "Our designer needs to present the right image." Lila squealed and hugged them, her perfume so strong it made my throat ache. I looked down at the box in my lap, ripped the paper, and found a ceramic mug from a clearance shelf. World's Most Responsible, with a $5 coffee card tucked inside. My stomach tightened. I'm 32, a field engineer who climbs bridges and inspects beams so strangers can drive home safe. And yet here I was, holding a gag gift while my sister got a condo and a car. My pulse throbbed in my ears. For weeks I'd planned this trip, saving up to buy thoughtful gifts, a leather wallet for Dad, a kitchen herb garden Mom pinned on Pinterest, the ring light Lila said she needed for brand shoots. I'd also rehearsed my announcement a dozen times on the 6-hour drive from Santa Fe. My promotion to senior engineer, the raise, the team I led, the projects finished ahead of schedule. I had imagined their faces lighting up with pride. I thought, stupidly, that this Christmas would be different. Instead, Dad winked at me. "Fitting, right? You're always responsible. Not like some people." Lila laughed and twirled again. The laughter scraped across my nerves like sandpaper. I set the mug down carefully, heard it tap against the glass table, and muttered, "Excuse me." Upstairs in the bathroom, I stared at my reflection, lipstick cracking, eyes dry and unblinking. People say heartbreak feels sharp, but truth is, mine settled like cement, heavy and suffocating. Every memory stacked in my mind at once. Lila's princess birthday with pony rides versus my dollar store sheet cake. My empty graduation seats because she had a soccer game. The temporary bills that drafted from my account while she found herself. 32 years of imbalance crystallized into one pattern. At 2 a.m., I quietly packed. Not in anger, more like survival. I took my steel-toed boots, my hard hat covered in job site stickers, my cedar box with my first license, and the Polaroid Aunt Ruth snapped of me on her porch swing when I was 12. The expensive gifts I'd wrapped for them stayed under the tree. They weren't about gratitude anyway. Before leaving, I placed my house key on the counter beside the coffee maker that would start brewing in 3 hours, scribbled "Merry Christmas" on a sticky note, and slipped out the door. The desert air was cold, biting through my jacket as I slid into my dusty Corolla. The clock glowed 3:12. Bing Crosby crooned about white Christmases on the radio, and I twisted the knob to silence because irony stung too much. Out on the freeway, headlights smeared across the wet asphalt, semis kicking mist that blinded me for seconds at a time. My phone lit up with Mom's face, then Dad's. Not, "Are you safe?" Not, "Come back, we can talk." Just a text. "Did you remember to pay the HOA dues for the cabin? The cabin I never use, the one Lila posts Instagram photos from?" My chest burned. I pulled onto the shoulder, hazard lights flashing, forehead pressed to the steering wheel, whispering to myself, "They chose. I get to choose too." And that's when the phone buzzed again. This time not family. It was Mila, my old college roommate, her voice warm and steady through the Bluetooth. "Where are you? Don't do this alone. Come to Albuquerque. I've got space." My throat closed around a single word that felt foreign, terrifying, and yet freeing. "Okay," I whispered. By dawn, I was crossing into New Mexico, the sky bruised purple, my notifications showing a wall of missed calls I refused to open. For the first time in years, the silence in my car didn't sound like punishment. It sounded like possibility. Mila's spare room smelled faintly of lavender dryer sheets and her old golden retriever's fur. And honestly, it was the first space in years that felt like it didn't expect anything from me. I dropped my duffel on the floor and collapsed on the twin bed, the ceiling fan humming like a lullaby. And for the first time since that awful Christmas morning, my shoulders sank into the mattress instead of bracing for impact. Mila poked her head in with a cup of chamomile tea, hair in a messy bun, scrubs still wrinkled from a 12-hour shift, and said, "You're safe here. Text me if you can't sleep." Truth is, I didn't sleep much that first week. My phone buzzed every hour with voicemails from Phoenix, my mom's teary manipulations, my dad's booming ultimatums, Lila's sugar-coated guilt trips. I muted them all. Instead, I sat cross-legged with that cup of tea cooling in my hands, scrolling Zillow like a teenager with a crush, studios I couldn't afford yet, casitas with peeling paint that somehow felt like freedom, tiny apartments with bars on the windows, but still mine. By the third day, I forced myself to call HR at the DOT, voice shaky but clear. I'd like to transfer to the Albuquerque district. I expected hesitation, hoops, maybe even a lecture about loyalty. Instead, my supervisor emailed back 3 hours later. Approved. Start date January 10th. They're lucky to have you. I stared at that last line until it blurred. Lucky to have you. Words I had never once heard from my own family. That night, Mila dragged me to Target, filling a cart with basics, sheets, a cheap lamp, a second-hand desk she swore her neighbor was getting rid of. "You're not just crashing here," she said firmly as she pushed the cart toward the register. "You're rebuilding." I didn't know how to argue with kindness like that, so I just followed. The first therapy appointment was harder. Dr. Patel's office smelled like citrus polish and had soft chairs that didn't punish your back. And she wore glasses on a beaded chain that made her look like every wise aunt I never had. She let silence hang in the air until my throat ached, until I finally whispered, "Favoritism," like it was contraband. My whole life. They dressed it up as jokes or responsibility or practicality, but it was favoritism. She just nodded, pen still, eyes steady, and asked, "And what role did you learn to play in that system?" My voice cracked. The responsible one. The one who didn't need help. The bridge that carried everyone else. The words tasted like metal, but also like relief. In between sessions, I started cooking with Mila. Simple meals, grilled chicken and roasted peppers, nothing fancy but ours. Her dog, Max, would snore under the table while we traded stories from college, the ones I had half forgotten. For the first time in years, laughter slipped out of me without feeling like a betrayal of something heavier. Then, one Tuesday morning, my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got me a few hours later in the DOT parking lot. "Ms. Morales, this is Anderson and LeClaire, counsel for Ruth Garvey. Please call us at your earliest convenience regarding an amendment to her estate." I nearly dropped the phone. Aunt Ruth, my godmother in everything but paperwork. The only adult who ever told me I didn't have to be perfect to be worthy. She used to sit me on her porch swing in Flagstaff, hand me a tomato still warm from the vine, and say, "Natalie, you don't owe anybody your usefulness." I hadn't seen her in 2 years. Not since a Thanksgiving where my mom barely spoke to her across the table. Now her lawyers wanted me in Flagstaff. "She insists on in person," the assistant said when I called back, her tone making it clear that this wasn't optional. I booked Friday off work, hands trembling as I clicked confirm on the rental car. Mila raised her brows when I told her. "That woman always saw you," she said, handing me a travel mug of coffee. "Maybe she's about to prove it." The drive north was cold and clear, desert giving way to pines, mountains rising like guardians as the miles ticked by. My phone lit up over and over with Phoenix numbers, but I kept them silenced, white knuckles gripping the steering wheel, wondering what could possibly be waiting. A part of me braced for disappointment, because that's the script my family wrote for me. But another part, small and stubborn, whispered, "Maybe this time the story's different." I pulled into Flagstaff at sunset, the sky bleeding orange over snow-dusted rooftops, and the law office's brass sign gleamed in the last light. My heart pounded as I pushed open the heavy door, the scent of wood polish and old paper wrapping around me. At the reception desk, a woman smiled gently. "Ms. Morales, Mrs. Garvey's been expecting you. She was very clear, you're not to be late." My throat went dry. "Aunt Ruth wanted me here," she insisted. For the first time in months, I felt the weight of a chapter turning, though I had no idea what kind of inheritance, material or otherwise, was about to land in my lap. The receptionist led me down a narrow hallway lined with framed diplomas, each one gleaming under recessed lights like silent witnesses. and my boots clicked against the polished wood as if announcing a verdict I hadn't asked for. My pulse thundered when she opened the door to a private conference room where Aunt Ruth sat. Smaller than I remembered, but still sharp-eyed, her silver hair pulled back in a braid, her knuckles pale against the cane she leaned on. "Natalie," she said, voice gravelly but steady. "You came." I froze in the doorway, words sticking in my throat, until she added, "Sit down, child, before I change my mind about leaving you anything." My legs obeyed faster than my brain. She looked me over, the way only someone who's known you since childhood can, seeing not just the woman I am, but the tired girl underneath. "They didn't come, did they?" she asked without needing clarification. I shook my head. Not even a question about whether I was safe on the road. Just demands. "Just bills." Her mouth twisted like she'd bitten into something sour. Same old Collins family. They take, and then they tell you it's love. The lawyer, a thin man with wire glasses, cleared his throat and slid a thick folder across the table. "Mrs. Garvey has executed an amendment to her estate plan. She requested you be present when we review the provisions." My fingers hovered over the folder, but didn't open it. Aunt Ruth tapped her cane. "Don't look so spooked, Natalie. It's not a trap. It's a door." The words lodged in me like a spark. "A door?" She leaned forward. "I built something. Land, investments, a cabin you never knew I owned because I didn't want your parents sniffing around. And I want it to go to someone who understands value isn't measured by bows on cars or condos with granite countertops. I want it to go to you." I blinked, heat pricking behind my eyes. "Me? Why?" She gave a dry laugh. "Because you're the only one who ever listened. Do you remember the summer you spent with me at 12, when your folks were too busy funding Lila's soccer camp? You helped me fix that fence, you asked questions about tomatoes and taxes, and you didn't roll your eyes when I told you family doesn't mean obedience. It means respect. I knew then that you were different, and I know now that you need a foundation they can't steal from you." My throat tightened so much I could barely breathe. The lawyer droned on about trust structures and deed transfers, but all I heard was the echo of Ruth's words, "Foundation they can't steal." My hand shook as I signed where the sticky flags told me, each pen stroke feeling like rebellion and salvation at once. When it was done, Ruth exhaled, long and slow. "Now, Natalie, this isn't just money. It's a weapon, if you let it be. Don't waste it proving yourself to them. Use it to prove to yourself that you were always worth more than $2 bills in a piggy bank." The reference hit me square in the chest, like she had seen into a memory I hadn't told anyone. Tears blurred the page. "How did you know?" "Because they pulled the same tricks on me once," she said, eyes narrowing. "Your mother was always the golden girl. I was the one told to grow up, be responsible, stop needing. So I walked away, and I never regretted it, not once." Silence pooled between us, heavy and sacred. I finally whispered, "What if they come after me when they find out?" Ruth smiled, sharp and fierce. "Then you'll stand taller because you'll have the papers, the deeds, and the truth. And I'll still be here, Cain and all, ready to remind them whose name is on the line." That night, I stayed in a cheap motel off Route 66, the walls thin enough to hear a couple fighting in the next room, the neon sign flickering through the blinds. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, folder of documents clutched against my chest, wondering if my whole life had just shifted on its axis. The next morning, driving back toward Albuquerque, my phone buzzed with another wave of missed calls. This time, curiosity won. I played the latest voicemail, Dad's voice, sharp and commanding. "Natalie, your little stunt is hurting your mother. You will call me back immediately." I deleted it. Then Mom's voice, syrupy sweet but cutting underneath. "Sweetheart, don't let outsiders put ideas in your head. You know we love you. Come home and let's fix this together." Delete. Finally, Lila's voice, chirpy but with an edge of panic. "Did you talk to Aunt Ruth?" I heard she was sick. "If she's doing something crazy with her will, you need to tell me." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. So they knew. Somehow, word had leaked, and the storm I'd been dreading was already building. By the time I reached Mila's driveway, snow flurries clinging to my windshield, my stomach churned with equal parts fear and defiance. Inside, I set the folder on the kitchen table, documents fanning out like a shield. Mila's eyes widened. "Nat, what is all this?" My voice shook but steadied by the end. "It's proof. Proof that I'm not crazy. Proof that I matter. And proof that when they come for me, and they will, I'll be ready. But even as I said it, a cold question gnawed at the back of my mind. How far would my family go to claw back what they thought belonged to them? 2 days later, I was standing in the break room at the Albuquerque district office, stirring powdered creamer into my coffee, when my phone lit up with a Phoenix area code again. I almost let it go, but something in my gut said answer. Dad's voice barked through the speaker before I could even say hello. We need to talk, now, at El Camino Diner. Your mother can't sleep, your sister's a wreck, and frankly, you owe us an explanation. My chest tightened. An explanation for what? There was a pause, heavy like static. Don't play dumb. Ruth's little stunt. Meet us at noon or we'll come to you. I hung up without agreeing, but of course I showed up. Some habits die slow. The diner smelled of bacon grease and strong coffee. The vinyl booths cracked from years of elbows and spilled milkshakes. I spotted them in a corner. Dad red-faced, Mom clutching her pearls, Lila scrolling her phone like it was a shield. I slid into the booth opposite, pulse racing. Mom leaned forward first. Natalie, sweetheart, this is all a misunderstanding. Your aunt isn't well. She doesn't know what she's doing with her estate. Dad slammed his fist against the table, silverware rattling. You're manipulating her, taking advantage. That property isn't yours. It belongs to the family. I laughed, sharp, humorless. Family? You mean the same family that left me with a mug and a $5 coffee card while she got a condo and a car? The same family that hasn't asked once if I'm safe, but keeps asking if I've paid the cabin bills? Their faces froze like mannequins. Lila put her phone down, eyes narrow. Natalie, think about your reputation. Do you really want people knowing you stole from your own blood? Stole? I shot back. She called me. She insisted. You didn't even show up. Dad leaned in, voice low and venomous. You will sign it back, quietly, or I swear you'll regret it. My hands trembled under the table, but I forced my voice steady. No. For once in my life, no. Silence crashed down, broken only by the hiss of the fryer in the kitchen. Mom's eyes filled with tears, the practiced kind. We raised you. We sacrificed for you. My throat burned. No, you sacrificed me. Every birthday, every graduation, every holiday. You sacrificed me so she could shine. The waitress came by with a pot of coffee, oblivious to the war spilling over the Formica. Refill? She asked brightly. None of us answered. When she walked away, Dad's jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might crack. You're making a fool of yourself, of us. Do you want to be the reason this family falls apart? I stared at the condensation on my water glass, then back at him. No, I want to be the reason it finally stops pretending it was ever whole. His face went purple. He opened his mouth to roar again, but I stood chair-scraping, knees shaky. We're done here. I walked out into the cold air, heart hammering, hands still trembling from adrenaline. Outside, snowflakes swirled in the gray sky, melting as they hit the asphalt. For a moment, I thought I might collapse on the curb, but then my phone buzzed again. Mila. How'd it go? She asked. I almost laughed, like a demolition site, and I think they're about to bring in lawyers. That night, I spread Ruth's documents across my desk, tracing each signature, each notarized stamp, like armor. But fear gnawed at me. My family had never respected boundaries, and with money on the line, they'd push harder. I barely slept, replaying every word from that diner until dawn painted the blinds pale gold. A week later, the envelope came. Certified mail, legal letterhead. My parents were contesting the will. The words swam on the page, threats dressed as formalities, undue influence, diminished capacity, fraudulent inducement. My stomach dropped. They were really doing it. I called Ruth, voice trembling, but she only chuckled darkly. Let them try. The paperwork is ironclad. But Natalie, this is where you'll have to decide. Are you going to keep running, or are you going to fight? I stared at the papers, the ink heavy like chains, and whispered to myself, I don't know if I have it in me. But deep down, a spark of defiance flickered. Because maybe, just maybe, I was about to find out. The courthouse in Flagstaff smelled of floor wax and old paper, the kind of smell that makes your stomach twist even before anything happens. And as I sat outside the probate hearing room with Ruth at my side tapping her cane, I thought about every Christmas morning, every time I swallowed my words just to keep peace, every bill I paid with a tight chest because family comes first. Now here I was, my own blood sitting across the hall with their lawyer, ready to paint me as some schemer. I caught a glimpse of Lila in her cream blazer. Scrolling her phone like this was just another brand collaboration. Mom dabbing at her eyes with a tissue before the cameras of her imagination, Dad pacing like a caged bull. My palms sweated as the clerk opened the doors. Inside, the judge sat high above, gray hair pulled into a neat bun, eyes that had no time for theatrics. The opposing lawyer started first, his voice smooth as butter but sharp underneath, talking about undue influence, about poor Mrs. Garvey not being in her right mind, about me swooping in like a vulture. My heart pounded so loud I almost missed it when Ruth suddenly barked, "Excuse me, Your Honor, may I speak?" The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mrs. Garvey, you'll have your turn." But Ruth pushed her cane against the floor, steadying herself, and said, "I am in full possession of my faculties. And I chose Natalie because she's the only one who never asked for a damn thing." The courtroom went silent except for the scratch of the stenographer's keys. The lawyer fumbled, but the judge nodded for Ruth to continue. She told stories of the summer I helped her mend fences, of the times she saw me bring groceries without being asked, of the phone calls where I just listened instead of demanded. And as she spoke, I felt my chest loosen, like maybe for the first time in my life, someone was holding the mirror up and showing me a version of myself I'd never been allowed to see. When it was my turn, my voice shook, but I stood anyway. I didn't manipulate anyone. I didn't beg for a condo or a car. I didn't expect her to choose me, but she did. And I think maybe she chose me because she knows what it's like to be invisible in your own family. I let the words hang. My parents shifted uncomfortably. The judge looked down, expression unreadable. After hours that felt like days, the decision came. The will stood as written. Contest dismissed. My knees nearly gave out with relief. Outside, the cold air slapped my face like baptism. Ruth gripped my hand with surprising strength. "You stood tall, child. Don't shrink again." My parents stormed past, Dad's glare burning holes through me, Mom's tears suddenly dry, Lila refusing to meet my eyes. They didn't speak, not a word. And I realized maybe that was the point. It wasn't my job to pull words from people who only offered silence when it mattered. Weeks later, I unlocked the cabin Ruth had left me, the one tucked deep in the pines, wood smoke still faint in the fireplace from the last time she'd stayed. I walked through each room slowly, fingers brushing worn beams, the air crisp and clean, no judgment hiding in the corners. On the porch swing, the same kind she once sat me on as a child, I let myself finally breathe. The documents were safe in a drawer inside, the deed in my name, the choice now mine. For the first time, I wasn't someone else's insurance policy or backup plan or ATM. I was just Natalie. And that was enough. Of course, the calls didn't stop, voicemails dripping with anger or guilt or both, but I didn't answer. I poured coffee into my chipped world's most responsible mug, the one I kept not as a wound anymore, but as proof of how far I'd come, and I sat on that swing watching the snow settle. You know, people think inheritance is about money, but truth is, sometimes it's about reclaiming your worth, about drawing a line in the snow and saying, no more. And here's the thing. As the wind whispered through the trees, I couldn't help wondering how many people out there were still waiting for permission to stop carrying everyone else's weight. Maybe you're one of them. Would you fight back, or would you keep paying the price in silence?